Oh, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be a Game Week 31 transfer plans video. It's a game week where it's hard to sort of decide what exactly we should be doing because ultimately there's so much information that we still need, and there's such a short turnaround as well. There's obviously going to be games tomorrow, which will be played on Wednesday, which we'll have to sort of analyze exactly what happens, whether any injuries happen. There's just so many key injuries so far that have happened week to week that just radically changed the landscape of FPL. And suddenly, obviously, as someone who's just wildcarded in Game Week 30, feeling forced to do so. And I felt like it was the right decision, especially in hindsight, at even looking at things like, for example, Trossard getting benched. But yeah, I've moved into Gabriel Saliba. Gabriel has now got an injured. Timber, who did get a clean sheet, seemingly is injured as well. And Saka coming off the bench, which was what I expected, right? Staggered minutes. He scored, got 2 bonus points, and those are the kind of breaks in FPL. I think sometimes I wouldn't say it's good or bad decision making necessary to bring Saka in. I think it's all about whether, you know, how you quantify saving a transfer, and the people who've been able to start Saka today have been quite fortunate, I would say. And in my case, I look like an idiot. So that's kind of that. With the Gabriel time, I think he kind of pulled up his hamstring. Timber has some sort of contact injury with Jimenez in the first half. Then he actually got subbed off in the second half, and I think Arteta's confirmed it's some sort of knee injury. We know White has a knee injury as well, and I don't know exactly how long that is for. We know that Calafiori is out for 2 to 3 weeks. That was exactly when Arteta spoke about him coming back from the international break being injured. Miles Lewis-Skelly is unfortunately not a defender in FPL. So it's someone like, the question really has to be asked, how long is Gabriel out for? How long is Timber out for? And we really might not get that level of information. And part of this is why I think it might make sense for me down the line to accept that I'll probably take a hit around Game Week 33 because of the injuries that I have in my team, and I think that's something I'm comfortable with, right? If you have injuries in FPL, you just have to manage them in some sort of way. I have wildcarded specifically to plan around a bench boost 32. So when I actually look at, you know, my wildcard here, for example, it makes a lot of sense for me to make a transfer on Game Week 32, not necessarily on Game Week 31 though. I think when I field the team that I'd like to field this week, I think I can just simply play Henderson in a home game. Sorry, of course, not Henderson, but I'll be playing Pope, for example. I won't be playing Gabriel. I will most likely be playing Kluivert, but I also don't really mind playing Sar or João Pedro. But that's kind of the rough plan. And having Nico Williams on the bench here. I'll be playing Guardiola, Trippier, and Saliba, which I think is a really, really strong defensive line. We know United, even in that sort of game versus Nottingham Forest, didn't create too many chances up until really late in the game when they had Maguire come on and effectively tried to Fellaini their way back into that game. So yeah, I think it's not so bad playing Guardiola here, and it's a bit of a stabilizer because I'd rather find out exactly what's going on with Gabriel and Timber and how long their timelines are. Yes, of course, Gabriel's injury looked poor. Sometimes hamstring injuries can last 4 weeks, but they could also be 2 weeks, and 2 weeks can get me towards Game Week 32. So those are the kind of questions that I need to kind of ask. Game Week 32, I think, very, very trickily, unfortunately, is also sandwiched between Real Madrid Leg 1 and Real Madrid Leg 2. So the problem, I think, from an Arsenal perspective is if you're thinking about the minutes, they're now competing on 2 fronts. It's nice that they actually got the win versus Fulham, so I guess in theory their league title hopes are alive, but we know for the most part, I think the Champions League is the realistic goal, and they'll continue to keep fighting within the league whereas possible. Saliba will most likely play, but then it's also, if Gabriel comes back, for example, does it make sense to actually be playing him in all 3 matches, right? In terms of the Real Madrid games and the league game. So those are considerations we need to think about. Same thing with Timber as well. Kiwior is most likely going to deputize. I don't really even quite know who they could play in the right back position for now, because I don't think Tomiyasu's fit. So it's one of those things where maybe, I don't know, they could be fielding Partey, for example, for a while at the right back position, which we've seen many, many times before for Arsenal, which means no defender, right? So it's really Kiwior who's the only Arsenal defender who is interesting right now and someone that we can transfer to, but he might not have a prolonged run within the team. And so the question about someone like moving into Kiwior is, does he survive Game Week 33? Does he play both matches in Game Week 33? And I think that's a really big asterisk right now. And unfortunately, because of this, I think I might have to bypass an Arsenal defender if we don't get this level of information. And simply put, I don't think we will from Arteta, unless he says something as bold as, you know, Gabriel's out for the season or Timber's out for the season, that sort of level of information. And that's unlikely because the injuries that they sustained, I think, were more short-term. So in finality, I think in Game Week 31, I'm totally fine as a Palmer, Salah, Kluivert. It's all good. I'm not going to be captaining Marmoush. It's definitely going to be an Isak captaincy, most likely. I think it's pretty close. I mean, Palmer has a pretty good game. Once again, it's an away match though, so not that interesting. I could actually play Sar over João Pedro as well, but I do think that Pedro's minutes have been really good so far. So it could even be Kluivert who continues to get benched going forwards. Gabriel, we know, is pretty inconsequential for this game week, especially since the turnaround is so tight, right? It's 4 days, and then you've got the weekend game. So that's kind of the plan here. Captain Isak and probably just go with a team that looks like this. The big question is, do I stay on bench with 32? Are there any other sort of alternative routes that allow me to sort of make more informed decisions? And I think, unfortunately, the answer is no. I think Game Week 32 is what I've set up for. Pope and Henderson, as things stand, are still playing goalkeepers, right? They'll double, or I mean, they'll both double. So I'll have doubling goalkeepers, and Henderson's the one who double-doubles. Trippier, I'm really eagerly excited to kind of have Trippier on the wildcard draft. So he feels like a big differential, and we'll just keep him like that. So that's kind of how I feel about the team for the time being. I did go for Palmer over Saka and Foden as well, mostly because I felt the 3-week stretch where Palmer with good minutes, probably versus Saka with staggered minutes and particularly managed minutes around the Real Madrid game, was probably going to be better. As things stand, it's not looking so great in that front, and Saka's going to rise. But crucially, I think from a transfer perspective, one thing I can mention is that I did plan to, and because I sold Isak, both Palmer and Isak are close to kind of their true market values for now. And even if I was to do a double free transfer, let's say in Game Week 33, and I think the simple transfer right now is to just do Saka and Watkins, I'm totally comfortable with, you know, the amount of leeway I need to make that move. And especially if, let's say, Gabriel is injured, there's not many defenders who are more expensive than him that I'll actually go for. So there's a lot of money that can come back to my team in multiple different ways. But I think part of the value, I suppose, of selling Isak the first time round is now I'm very flexible to sell Isak again. So yeah, going Watkins and Saka, I have no issues. That is really the key double transfer that I really want to have for this team. So that's really, I think, the core concept of why I went for this sort of wildcard draw structure. As you guys know, it is a bench with 32 and a 3 at 34. So the idea of even, let's say, selling someone like maybe Salah later down the line for maybe someone like Foden in Game Week 33, if he's actually playing well, if he's getting good consistent minutes, and I actually think he's going to be a top option in Game Week 33, is there. But Game Week 33, Salah actually has a really good fixture himself. So there's no real need or consideration from my part to sell Salah. I will be free hitting into Salah in Game Week 34, so that's something I don't really need to think about. One thing to mention is that Liverpool do close the season with a pretty average run of games. Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Brighton away, Crystal Palace at home. Those are top half teams and undeniably pretty tough fixtures for the context of Liverpool, right? So those are kind of my thoughts in terms of my team. Still happy that I did wildcard because I think I got a few rises here and there. I've been able to sort of move out of players like Trossard, players like Dango, who might actually play versus Ipswich, and I might look stupid tomorrow, so let's find out. But the chance to move into Marmoush and Isak was really nice. The chance to move into Trippier was also quite nice before he becomes, I guess, a little bit more of a popular pick potentially, or someone that, you know, people entirely ignore. So we'll see what happens there. So that's kind of the update in terms of the wild card. And I think from a transfer plans perspective, it's really about trying to get as much information as possible and then reacting. So let's just quickly jump into my true transfer plans when it comes to different sort of rolling assumptions when it comes to Game Week 32 and the bench boost over there. So as ever, we're back with the Fantasy Football Hub My Team Pick and Rating tool. It's a very good tool that I use to try and manage and plan away future fixtures, trying to make sure that my team is as strong as possible on a weekly consistent basis. It's nice, of course, to see a good little game week rating here after a wild card. Hopefully we'll just consistently be within sort of the upper 90s in future game weeks to come, but that's kind of the idea behind the draft. As far as, let's say, Game Week 31, I really don't think there are too many decisions to make. Clearly, it's just going to be benching Gabriel for someone like Trippier. Trippier gets to play. I think is a really strong pick. Potentially a little bit understated, I feel, maybe by the solver. I think he's on quite a few set pieces, as I could see from the Carabao Cup semi-final, or final rather. And hopefully that sort of remains the case when we get a little bit of the shades of Trippier of old from previous seasons, but I doubt that that's going to happen. So that's kind of the team as it stands. But hopefully, if he's actually fit and available for this sort of West Ham game, I think is most likely worth playing over João Pedro. Not sure if he's necessarily worth playing over Sar, but that is a consideration that I will have to think about. As far as Marmoush, I think it's interesting to see probably a little bit of a slow update in terms of how strong he is as a pick. I think if you think about Julian Alvarez last season, and when Haaland actually had a pretty long lasting injury, the increase in terms of how the markets and models responded to how good someone like Marmoush is quite significant. Because I just think when you have a chance to play center forward, move into that sort of position, take penalties, which I think is something that I think he will take. Yes, of course, Gundo and KDB are contenders, but I really don't think KDB is much of a penalty taker. Gundo, it has been quite different. I think if you see, for example, the German national team, you see Kai Havertz take penalties. He doesn't even get a sniff of them in Arsenal. Marmoush has taken 4 penalties this season in the Bundesliga, so I really think he'll take penalties, and therefore I think his expected value and expected points could be and should be higher. But yeah, in terms of Gameweek 32, this is the week I'm bench boosting, right? So clearly, Gabriel not being fit would be a huge problem for me. It's actually not so bad of a fixture for a team like Man City. So one of the considerations that I've actually thought about, if I'm unsure about, let's say, the exact timeline for Gabriel to be out for, or the exact timeline for Timber to be out for. And as I said, the issue with Timber is if Partey comes in, that's not a defender. If Kiwior comes in, it's really only for that sort of Gabriel position, because I can't really see him playing something like right back, right? So he is quite tied to the Gabriel injury. And of course, I would love to have replaced Gabriel with Timber, but Timber's out. So I think the rough plan that I have in my mind is maybe to go into someone like Ruben Diaz. It's not the prettiest play. This also kind of means that I'm probably blocked from Foden, but it also means that I get to keep Salah. So I think that's a pro for Gameweek 33. And by going for Ruben Diaz, in this context, yes, of course, it's going to make my team a little bit worse because I'm not maximizing triple Arsenal. I might even take a hit to go for an Arsenal player at Gameweek 33, depending on what the information is, right? If Marino continues to play like consistent 90 minutes a game, he could find his way to my team alongside someone like Saka, and maybe I could go out of one of my midfielders, like let's say even someone like a Kluivert potentially, which wouldn't feel so good, but I did wildcard with Kluivert in mind for a Gameweek 36 kind of double potential. But if I have the opportunity to move to, let's say, Marino, and he's got really favorable fixtures and it's really hard to pick Arsenal assets, then, you know, so be it. I'll move players like Palmer, etc. in Gameweek 33. So that's kind of where my head is at. I'll clearly be bench boosting here as well in Gameweek 32. So I think it's a pretty strong bench boost as things stand. It's a home game for Kluivert. It's a home game for Nico Williams versus a team that is still pretty stagnant in terms of attack. We know that, I think, since the red hot start for Moyes, it's kind of cooled down a little bit. So that's kind of the rough idea. But, you know, as I said, Kiwior could also just be the player here. And Kiwior would be nice from the context of, first of all, just a generally better game playing Brentford at home compared to Crystal Palace at home, and no mirror matchup between my players and sort of my attackers and defenders. But I know that bringing Ruben will at least give me the double for Man City as well. So that's something I need to be thinking about. But for now, I think Ruben is not a bad placeholder. No point really optimizing the team, as I'll be bench boosting in Gameweek 33 here. I'll have Ruben Diaz, which is quite nice. So if I optimize the team, yes, of course, you know, players like Trippier and Nico Williams fall down into the bench, which is fine. That's sort of exactly what the plan was anyways. And then the question, of course, is just going to be what to do with triple Arsenal, right? So I think I'm probably going to be doing something like Palmer out, and also be doing maybe actually a Kluivert out as well. But I think Watkins is someone that I'd like to bring in first as a priority option. And I will probably take Palmer out for Saka. But the biggest question is going to be around, once again, you know, how to optimize around triple Arsenal. I have Henderson who doubles, so that's okay. So it's really just maybe let's say Kluivert, who I could take out of my team and probably go out of. And another thing to sort of monitor as well, I suppose, within the context of Gameweek 35, is that Gameweek 35 is quite an interesting window where, unfortunately, I don't see myself rolling any transfers towards Gameweek 35, but Gameweek 35 is a week where we actually get a lot of information around Gameweek 36 and 37, and whether specifically there's a double game week in 36 and what that double game week is and what that blank is for 37 conversely. So that's something to consider. But yeah, I think because of the injury with Gabriel, unless he's back and unless somehow, you know, I get rid of the Ruben transfer and he's somehow back in time for 32 for the bench boost, which I think is so unlikely, that's going to be that. I'm going to have to just manage and maybe just go for Marino on Gaming 33. And we'll just have to see how things fall for a team like Arsenal and whether we have any defenders as well to choose from. So that's kind of the plan I have for Gaming 33. For Gaming 34, as you guys know, I'll be free hitting. So I don't really have to have a team that's strongly built for that. And then by Gaming 35, this is where you need to start thinking about, yes, of course, there's going to be a double game week in 36, and most likely but actually the more doublers you bring into Game Week 36, the more blankers you have in Game Week 37. So there's a little bit of a double-edged coin when it comes to sort of planning the rest of the season, where if there's a lot of doubles in Game Week 36, you're dealing with a lot of blanks in Game Week 37, and you might not want to go overboard there, or you might want to have at least a strong enough bench that can kind of cover you for Game Week 37. So I think there's a bit of a push and pull dynamic here, especially as you get towards 36 and 37. So something to think about for a lot of managers. But yeah, I think when we go towards the end of the season, we'll have a lot of punts opened up. A lot of people will be thinking about things like assistant manager as well, potentially using their triple captain if they haven't used it already. And that's a stage in the season where there's a lot of 1 game week punts that I think become a lot more fun, right? Or even 2 game week punts, so on and so forth. So that's kind of my general transfer plans for now. I don't really want to go too far, because I think as soon as we get towards game week 35, our understanding of the game completely changes again. And we just wait for those FA Cup results and actually just react accordingly at that point in time. So thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys soon. Take care. Goodbye.